And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're going to be taking a look at a small card game called Brawling Barons. Now, Brawling Barons says a 2 to 3 player game, but you can actually play with more than that if you take two of the decks and put them together. In fact, one deck is really best for 2 players, and then if you add this, you got 3 and 4 players involved. Brawling Barons is a game about building your own landscape, building your own kingdom. Is it a good game? Well, of course, that's why we're here to talk to you about it. Let's take a look. Here is my imaginary town. At the beginning of the game, I'll have some cards dealt to me, but I'm going to have like a playing area in front of me. In my town, I'll have places where I can put my soldiers or different people, or later on buildings that will be in the town. And then in front of them is where I can send some soldiers to guard my wall. And then as time goes by, there's a spot where I can send some of these soldiers over here to the King's Army, which is basically where I'll never see them again. There's also a draw pile over here with a couple cards that are face up that I can take when I need them, and that's called the Market. Now, the deck is made up of many cards, but most of the cards are squires and peasants. And squires and peasants are put into play by paying their resource, but they can also be upgraded. For example, this peasant here can be upgraded into a farmer. This squire can be upgraded into a soldier. And there's lots of different upgrades that can occur. Here we see that this peasant has changed into a mayor, and this squire changed into an archer, or a horseman, or a catapult. Well, sometimes peasants can upgrade into buildings, like this farm, or barracks, or tavern, or inn. So you can only have 2 of these people of each type in your town at any one time, although some buildings like this inn let you have 1 of each extra in there, or the barracks let you have 2 extra soldiers in your town. So on your turn, you get to take an action. You get 1 action. One of your actions can be gather resources. Resources are taken from the top of the draw pile and put into a resource pile in front of you, and then when you spend them, they go back to the draw pile. So it's kind of, you're just temporarily borrowing them and putting them back. If you decide to take resources, you get 1 resource plus any bonuses. Here, whenever I take the resource action, the farmer gives me 2 extra and the peasant gives me 1. So if I collect resources, I get 4 of them. Or I can draw cards. That's different than resources because the card comes in my hand and I might be able to use it later on. I get 1 plus any bonuses, so the tavern gives me 1. So if I took cards in my hand, I'd get 2. I can always take one of the face-up market cards into my hand as an action. I can also decide to recruit, which is to play a card from my hand as long as I spend the resources, or I can upgrade, where I spend the amount of money to upgrade them to the next type, whatever that type might be. I can move. Military units are the only people who move, and so you can move them to the wall, or they can be sent over to the King's Army, never to be seen again. Or you can attack. If you have military units in your town or on your wall, you can attack. If they have military units in the wall, you attack them first, otherwise you can hit stuff in their town. You will do damage. There are cards that you can play that will help with defense or help with attack. All attackers are either discarded or downgraded, whichever one is possible. And if you hit somebody and do enough damage to them, you will downgrade them or discard them. To do a building, you have to do double damage to the building, and then that building will be taken away from your opponent. So you're going to keep going until the deck runs out. And I should mention that throughout the deck, there's some cards. These aren't dealt at the beginning, but these cards help those who are in last place. For example, whoever has the fewest cards draws 2 cards. Whoever has the least resources gets 3. And so whenever these show up, they will help out whoever's in last place. But anyway, when the deck runs out of cards, you will then score. Each building in your town is worth a point. Each soldier that you've sent off to the King's Army is worth 2. That's it. Add your points together, most points is the winner. Brawling Barons has a lot of interesting features to it. I really like how the peasants and the warriors can be upgraded in different soldiers. That's a neat concept. I like the artwork to the game. I like how you have different bonuses. Some bonuses when you draw cards. That's a neat idea. However, all that coming into play does not matter if the game itself is somewhat flawed, and here's why. There is absolutely no point to attacking another player because it hurts you just as badly as it hurts your opponent. It might hurt your opponent more if you take your time to do attacks. But the fact that all attackers are decreased by 1, and so you're sitting there saying, okay, I'm going to attack my opponent to take them out as much as I possibly can, but it would be much more efficient for me to take all my soldiers and send them to the king's army. It really is. Sure, it takes a few turns to do that, but each soldier you have in the king's army has 2 points. Each building you have is 1. So you say, I'm going to disrupt my opponent's economy, I'm going to go in there with soldiers and just destroy it, and there's nothing he's going to do about it, I'm going to lose some soldiers along the way. Big deal. He'll let you do that, build a couple soldiers, send them to the king's army, and even though you destroyed his economy, he is still ahead of you. I've thought about it for a while, and maybe the designers know more than I do in this regard, but it just doesn't come together in that way. I like it, but that whole fact that those soldiers you send in the king's army are double any buildings you build in town, and these buildings you build are expensive. Soldiers can be cheap. You can get a soldier out there, send it up, and shoot it over to king's army. Easy, quick, fast, lots of points. So I like the concept of the game, but I cannot recommend it right now because it just doesn't work that well. It's a neat idea, but this is more like a half-baked game. This is a game where like, whoa, that's some cool ideas. When I went over the rules on cards, by the way, something I'm not a big fan of, but when I went over the rules and I said, oh, this is going to be great, this is going to be interesting, but we kept trying it and we kept coming to the same conclusion. Get soldiers out as fast as you can, run them to the king's army. No other strategy wins. I tried to destroy my opponent by fighting multiple times, and all I did was end up hurting myself, especially in a multiplayer game where everyone else is just going to ignore the people who are fighting and run soldiers over to the king's army. So, unfortunately, it's a neat idea, but not a good game.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door.
There.